We are broadcasting live from the White House, and we are joined now by White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine, good morning.
Good morning. It is so cool that you are live from the White House
I
today.
know, it is cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting wearing these. I've not had to wear headsets in a while. So hopefully I don't look too crazy, Solomon. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
It's
thanks
exciting to
thanks
have
for
you.
having us.
Happy Black History Month.
Yeah, same to you.
Still got a couple days left.
Yeah. Last time I saw you was at Valley Forge
Oh,
when the president came
right.
out.
Yeah, because you were part of the
I
pool
was
that
part of the
day.
pool.
And we said hello really
We
quickly.
did.
That was that was a very important day.
Yeah.
The day before the
Yeah.
2-year anniversary of January 6th and what
Yeah.
happened in 2022.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
3-year anniversary, actually. Sorry.
Yep. And one of the things that I noticed about that day was that there weren't a lot of Black people. And you were incognito. They didn't even know who you were. I was like, wait a minute. That's Karine Jean-Pierre. You were incognito. You were talking to some guy. Nobody knew who you were. I was like, wait a minute. Hey. So it's good to see you again.
I try to be incognito.
I know. Hey, that's the best way to be. That way people leave you alone. So there are a couple of things I wanted to ask you about.
Sure.
So one is the war in Gaza. The war has many people in the Black community very angry because they see Israel as an oppressor at this point, and they see the United States helping. Now, I watched a small group of people marching through a Philadelphia suburb chanting, "Biden, Biden, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide." How can the Biden administration fix this, or is it even possible?
So a couple of things there that I want to, this is not just like a one-off answer, right? I want to be incredibly mindful and understanding. And the president understands that this is a difficult issue for many people, and he understands that. And this is something that we are obviously see. I do want to step back. We have to take a look back on what happened on October 7th. October 7th, more than 1,200 people were essentially slaughtered. More than 200 people were taken into hostage. This isn't obviously Israelis, and many of them. You think about the women and the girls who were raped. Rape was used as a form of war, as an attack. It was brutal. It was awful, and it was done by an organization. Obviously, as we know, Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and this is what they did. And and the way that we have to seriously, these are the facts that I'm laying out, right? Hamas, what they do is they embed themselves in civilian infrastructure, like hospitals, like residential areas, and they put the lives of innocent Palestinians in harm's way. That is what we're seeing. And they do not care about the Palestinians. They've made that very clear. When you do something like that, you do not care about Palestinian people, innocent Palestinians. And they have said, leadership from Hamas have said that they are going to go after or do what they've done October 7th over and over and over again. So Israel does have a right to defend itself. And that's what we are, obviously, the U.S. policy, that's what we're supporting. At the same time, and I want to be very, very clear about this, we understand that Palestinian lives have been taken and that they have been sadly in the crosshairs of this. So we want to make sure that we get that humanitarian aid into Gaza. That's what the president has been doing, while also getting American hostages and all hostages home. And so the president was able to lead and be able to be part of the diplomatic conversation. We were able to have a humanitarian pause. We saw that at the end of last year. More than 100 hostages were able to come home, and we got that all important humanitarian aid into Gaza. We're continuing to talk to Israel, the Israeli government, and others in the region to continue to get that humanitarian aid. And the president and his administration has been working around the clock to get that temporary ceasefire that we've been discussing, that we've been talking about. It is important to get there, and that includes humanitarian aid, and obviously that includes getting hostages home. it is, and we understand that communities uh, are having a difficult time right now. We get that. And so you just talked about what we saw in Philly that day, right? With the protest, and the president has always said people have a right to share their views, and have a right to protest, just as long as it's done peacefully. And that's kind of where we are. But
Hmm.
it is not a one-off answer, right? This is a very there's a lot going on here that we have to look at all the facts and be very clear about this.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people are troubled about
Yeah.
is that you have 29,000 Palestinians, the vast majority of
Yeah.
them civilians, babies, in incubators, hospitals attacked over and over again. Of course, that's against the Geneva Conventions, etc. And so we see the Biden administration supporting that. And I think that's what people are angry about, giving them the money to do that. I think that's what people are angry
Well,
about.
I push back a little bit on saying that we see the administration supporting that. The president has spoken about the lives that have been lost
But we
in the,
continue to give them the money.
wait, hold on a second.
Yeah.
We the president has been very clear in speaking about that, and
Yeah.
saying one life is too many. He's called out the numbers of innocent Palestinians that have been taken, their lives have been lost, and one is too many. Uh, but at the same time, if we're going to have this conversation, we have to talk about Hamas's role in this and what they
Hmm.
have done.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the reality. The fact that they
Hmm.
embed themselves in these hospitals, they embed themselves in these civilian infrastructure. That is what they are doing. We have to also talk about that as well. And the president has been very clear. We need to get to a temporary ceasefire. We have to. We have to continue to stop the lives, protect lives essentially. And we've had this conversation with the Israeli government. We have said we have to. They have to make sure that they protect innocent lives, and they have to do this obviously in following the international humanitarian law here. And so we've been very, very clear about that. But we also have to talk about what Hamas is doing here. That seems to be leaving the conversation, and we can't also allow that as well.
Hmm.
So, you know, we're going to continue to have these conversations. We're going to continue to ask for a temporary ceasefire. We're going to continue to fight to make sure that we get that humanitarian aid
Yeah.
into Gaza. We're going to make sure that we get, remember, there are hostages being held. Some of them are American hostages being held in Gaza by Hamas, by this terrorist organization.
Hmm.
The president's doing everything that he can to get those Americans home to their families, to get those hostages home to their families and friends. That's also a reality here. But the Palestinian lives, innocent Palestinian lives, being at this, being taken, is also, the president has been very clear. That is not okay.
So
That
what are we
is
going
not
to do
okay.
about it?
We're going to as I said, we're going to continue to work with regional partners in the Middle East, get that temporary ceasefire. We got to have that. We got
Okay.
to make sure we get that humanitarian aid. We got to make sure that we get American hostages, all hostages home.
Okay. So many in the Black community concerned about immigration,
Yeah.
particularly where construction jobs are concerned. Many contractors seem to hire migrants rather than Black Americans. We see that a lot in Philadelphia, a lot of construction going on. What is the president doing about the border, especially after Republicans impeached Secretary Mayorkas?
Well, the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas in the House, not in the Senate, but in the House,
Mhm.
was a political stunt. And that's what we're seeing from House Republicans. We've called that out. We've been very clear. We believe that's not what Americans want to see. They want to see us get things done on behalf of the American people, and that's what we're trying to do. We would love the Republicans in the House to actually join us in that.
Yeah.
Look, and we got to step back too. The Senate move forward in a bipartisan way with a negotiation plan, a process, a proposal that actually dealt with the immigration system. We saw it as a tough proposal, but also a fair proposal that would
Mhm.
actually deal with this. And what Republicans decided to do was listen to the former president. right, and not move forward
Mm.
with that bipartisan deal. And again, we think that's what Republicans, not Republicans, that's what American people want us to do: come forward a bipartisan way to make sure we deal with these issues. And that's what we saw. And so that's the first piece of this. The president has been very serious from day one, putting forward a comprehensive immigration system. That's on the his immigration proposal. That was on his first day in this administration. He did that. And then for 4 months, he worked with Republicans and Democrats in the Senate to come up with a bipartisan way forward to deal with the immigration system, to deal with the challenges that we're seeing at the border. Republicans rejected that.
Mm.
As it relates to the Black community, look, the president and the vice president, when they walked into this administration, made a promise that we would do everything that we can to deal with injustices and move forward with an equality, right, in dealing with communities across the board, but also the Black community. And he took action in dealing with that. If you think about the American Rescue Plan, which was only passed by Democrats, it actually dealt with, for example, child tax credit. You saw uh, Americans, the people in the Black community, obviously getting about $300 a month to deal with poverty in our community, to deal with child poverty. It cut back by 50%. Small businesses. There's a Black small businesses boom, and the reason there is because of that American Rescue Plan. Because now we're seeing opportunities for folks to start their small businesses. So we're seeing a boom, 16 million applications. That's because of the work that this president has done. When the president walked in, unemployment for Black Americans were more than 9%. Now it's at a little bit more than 5%. That's because of the work that we have been doing. And so we are doing the work. One of the crises that we saw, that the president saw when we walked in, was racial inequality. That was a crisis. One of the things that he did is he signed an executive order to make sure that his administration on a federal level was moving forward when it comes to policy, to make sure that equity was at the center of it. So this is what we have done when it comes to procurement, when it comes to contracts. We have made sure that Black small businesses and Black businesses more broadly are making sure that they're getting a good portion in a fair way of that contract.
Mhm.
Home ownership. You see Secretary Fudge, who's leading HUD. We dealt with the discrimination in home ownership, and we've seen a boom in home ownership under this president in the Black community. So we have taken the action. We see that in the data. We're going to continue to work and make sure that we do not leave any communities behind, including the Black community.
I want to ask you about something that happened in Philadelphia recently.
Yeah.
The police department rehired officers who were fired, one for alleged sexual assaults, one for alleged sexual harassment, one for saying a racial epithet on a recorded call, another for posting 100 bigoted Facebook posts, including one that said death to Islam. What happened to police reform?
So let's step back again. All these questions, we got to step back. George Floyd, right? There's the law, the not the law, even the legislation that Congress was trying to pass. They couldn't get it passed.
Yeah.
The president took action, put forth an executive action. He's always going to call to make sure that there's legislation that deals with the George Floyd Policing Act. We want to see that become law, but they couldn't get it done. So the president took action, and actually on the federal level, there are things that are being done, whether it's ban, chokehold, and many other provisions that are in that executive action. Now there's a database that the Department of Justice is putting together. There's more information, obviously, that we can get from the Department of Justice that deals with this issue that you just mentioned. I can't speak to each of those cases because I don't know much more about each of those cases. I would have to go to the Department of Justice and figure out exactly what you're talking about, the police officers that you're laying out. But there is a database that the Department of Justice is moving forward with that will help with local police enforcement know exactly what's happening as things are. As we see police officers, what they're doing in another state, so that they know how to move forward in their hiring process. So that is happening. That's never existed before.
Mhm.
That has never existed before, this database. So that's coming out of the Department of Justice. But the president has taken action. When Congress couldn't move forward on the George Floyd Policing Act, he took executive action because he understands how important it is to make sure that we protect our communities, that our community feels protected as it relates to policing.
All right. That's Karine Jean-Pierre. She's the White House press secretary, joined us this morning as we were reporting live from the White House. Karine, thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks you, Solomon. Thanks
All right.
everybody for being here.
All right.
Okay.